Polis. Smart man. That does not mean, however, that Coloradans are dumb. Even the governor's harshest critics acknowledge his intelligence. The Independence Institute's John Caldera called Polis the most clever and dangerous governor we've ever had. Democrats, of course, would disagree on the dangerous part. But the point is, like or dislike Polis's politics, he's a smart guy. I hope he doesn't think the rest of us are dumb. Like earlier this week, when the governor proposed reducing property tax increases by using our own Tabor refunds, giving you some of your own money and claiming that he's saving you money.
And that's Kyle Clark on KUSA. So what does that tell you? Let's go to Ben Murrey, who's doing great work at the Independence Institute, along with one John Caldera there, who's the head of it. But Ben's been doing a great job of calling out this property tax relief scam. Ben, welcome back to the Dan Caplis Show.
Dan, oh man, I love it when liberal TV hosts start lifting my talking points from me. I love it. So he said that, he's just Polis just wants to take our own Tabor refunds and give it back to us as property tax relief. That's what I predicted in my last Monday column in Colorado Politics. I thought, they'll do what they did before. They'll use our Tabor refunds to give us property tax relief, and it'll just kind of be a wash. It turns out that it was actually a lot worse than that. But the bigger point is still true. It's just worse, right? So they're using our Tabor refunds to give us property tax relief, but they're taking far more from our Tabor refunds than just what they would need to give us the property tax relief.
Explain that to folks.
Well, what I expected they would do is they would say, okay, we're going to reduce the state assessment rate on homes by whatever amount, and that's going to reduce local revenue by, $300 million or $500 million. And we're going to then backfill that money to local governments using $500 million from Tabor surpluses, from your Tabor refund. That's what I thought they would do. And that's what Kyle Clark basically was saying there. But he should have had his team do a little bit of research on the latest developments before he just lifted my talking points from when I was predicting what would happen. Because what actually happened is they said, we're going to give you a little bit of property tax relief, but instead of just taking the amount we need from your Tabor refunds to backfill that relief, we're actually going to change the Tabor cap formula so that the amount of money we're allowed to keep from your Tabor refund increases exponentially over time. Right? And the reason why is because
can they do that without a vote?
Well, that's why it's going to the ballot this November.
Gotcha.
So in order to get property tax relief, a tiny little bit of property tax relief, you'll have to vote to give up your Tabor refunds forever. But
the old gun to the head.
The old gun to the head, the old extortion scheme. And what's so clever about it is they didn't simply do what they did with Proposition CC in 2019, where they just said, hey, can we keep your Tabor refunds forever, like starting right now? They lost that battle. So they're doing a different approach, and it's so clever. Like, honestly, I have a lot of respect for the person who thought of this, because just as a policy person, like thinking this up. Mm-hmm. Because if you understand how compounding works, that's essentially what they're using, is they're using the power of compounding, where the way they're taking your Tabor refund from you is by raising the amount of money they're allowed to keep, right? And they use a new formula, and that formula grows by an extra 1% every year, right? So in year one and year two, it actually doesn't have a huge impact on your Tabor refund. 170 million in year one, 360 million in year two. But by year 5, you're giving up over $1 billion extra in your Tabor refund. By year 10, it's over $2 billion. And then by year 20, it'll be something like $8 billion, right? So you can see that quickly, we just never have a Tabor refund again.
Wow. And again, the trap, the bait, the extortion is, in order to get some property tax relief, because people are getting hammered all over the state, you have to agree to this. You have to give all of this up to get this little sugar. Well, it's not a little sugar high, it's some relief, but nothing compared to what you're giving up.
Yeah, I mean, and here's the thing. The politicians who are giving us this tiny, tiny little bit of relief caused this crisis to begin with. If they had just done nothing, then we would not be in this mess. Because they meddled in things, the property tax rate, the assessment rate, is about 35% higher than it would have otherwise been. Okay? Because they meddled. What's that?
What meddling caused that?
Number one is putting Gallagher repeal on the ballot and deceiving voters into giving up that protection. Mm-hmm. And then they messed around over the last 3 years with with property tax policies, sort of temporary patchwork policies that landed us at the current rate, which is about 35%. We don't know exactly because we stopped tracking the data on Gallagher, but something like 35% higher than it would have otherwise been had they simply done nothing. Okay? Now, this proposal, Polis's proposal, offers to lower the assessment rate by 0.96%. After they increased it 35%, they want to lower it by 0.96%. That is the relief they're giving you.
Yeah. What's that going to mean to the typical Colorado?
Well, it means this. It means no matter what happens, whether Polis's plan, it's going to be called Proposition HH on the ballot. Whether HH is adopted by voters or rejected by voters, we will see the largest property tax increase ever in Colorado.
When will the vote be?
This November.
Okay.
So the question then is, because these politicians caused this crisis and then waited to the last minute to offer a very bad solution, they've left, and by the way, there's no plan B. There's no, okay, if you don't want this, then what about this?
Yeah.
Because they've done that, they basically have voters over a barrel. They have taxpayers over a barrel. And we, this November, will have two choices. Reject Proposition HH and just accept the largest property tax increase in Colorado history. Or option B, support Proposition HH, Polis's plan, and accept the largest property tax increase in Colorado history, right, minus a tiny, tiny little bit, and give up your Tabor refund forever, starting in a few years.
Let's start the next segment together. I have one other thing I have to do in the next segment, but you are such a great resource for all of this. I want to get Ben Murrey back with us on the other side for a couple of minutes to put a bow on this, but please do check out his materials on YouTube as well. The big scam, the big property tax scam. You're on the Dan Caplis Show. Oh, so grateful to have Ben Murrey with us from Independence Institute. He's been doing heroic work on this property tax relief scam from Polis and the left, where, as Ben so well put it in the last segment, you're facing the largest property tax increase in Colorado history one way or the other. But what the left is trying to do now is extort you. I think those are Ben's words, but extort you. I think I said gun to the head, right, Ben? Into voting for this Prop HH, which would allow them to keep much more of your tax money in the future under Tabor in order to get this little bit of property tax relief. Is that a fair summary, my friend?
I think all those are great ways to put it. Gun to the head, extortion, mob bosses running our state, crooked payday lenders who give you relief in the short term for a much higher cost over the long term. Yeah, however you want to look at it.
Yeah, tell us what you really think. Ben, we have a texter asking, if we reject Prop HH, will we still get a good amount of Tabor relief to offset some of the property taxes?
I have an answer to that you're not going to like. Our politicians have put us in a situation where we are going to feel a lot of pain no matter what we do. That's the truth. I don't see any way around that. There is an Initiative 21, and if that ends up on the ballot, then that would be an alternative that would actually be a lot better than Proposition HH, but I don't know if that'll be on the ballot. What I know is that no matter what happens, with or without Proposition HH, property taxes will go up a whole lot. The only question you really have to ask yourself is, do I vote for it and give up my future Tabor refunds forever, or do I vote against it and just go ahead and accept my fate and we come back next year and try to fix this problem?
And you would have folks vote against it?
I think that taxpayers would be much better off, much better served voting against it. Let me say something obvious. Right now, if politicians were to do nothing right now, if they were to put nothing on the ballot and not fix this problem, they would get a massive tax windfall from property taxes, right? And that's what the folks in charge in this state want. Right. They think you are better off if more of your money is spent for you by politicians and bureaucrats, right? So that's what they want. So doing nothing is a huge win for them. So why would they offer voters something that would be worse for them than what they get by doing nothing? That tells you everything you need to know. That tells you that what they're proposing on the ballot cannot be possibly be better than doing nothing. Because if they weren't offering you something that would make the politicians better off, then they would just, you see what I'm saying? They would just do nothing.
What's missing from the equation, and properly so here, what would be in that equation, an extra step in most places would be, hey, the voters may really punish them at the ballot box, but the Democrats in Colorado don't really have that concern, right? That they view themselves as bulletproof, can do anything they want and still win all these statewide races, still have healthy majorities is their attitude.
Dan, the amount of hubris coming from the Democratic Party right now is something like I haven't seen since I was in Washington, D.C. And, and in fact, it probably even exceeds that. It's pretty astounding. They really believe that they can do no wrong in the eyes of Colorado voters. And that's how they're acting.
Yeah, and I thought I'd seen it all until the resolution they introduced today, the Our Feces Doesn't Smell resolution. That I thought was a bridge too far, but that is their attitude, right? And it's just this double middle finger to everybody out there. It's the first time I've seen this in decades here in Colorado. They truly think they're bulletproof, that they cannot lose at the ballot box. Where does this eventually end, Ben? If they keep winning the way that they're winning, I mean, look at the last election cycle. I mean, Colorado's plagued with this mass homelessness, mass crime, everything else. Didn't seem to have any effect on the statewide races. So where does this end?
I don't have an answer to that because, I can't predict the future, but I will say this, that Tabor is the last best protection Coloradans have against government, overreach.
Which means they will end it.
So they're working very hard to end it. Proposition HH will effectively end it. And it's extremely important that we protect that. Now, they're trying to extort you. They're trying to kind of say, hey, look, you're in this short-term pain, and we'll give you a little bit of perceived short-term relief, but it's going to cost you Tabor over the long term. That's what they're putting in front of voters. Mm-hmm. And I say, don't be deceived. Don't be fooled. Reject Proposition HH. But if we lose Tabor, if that's what ultimately happens, then there is no more restraint on this progressive government.
Well, and this is a great way to put a bow on this conversation because you started out, I played some of the Kyle Clark sound on KUSA saying, hey, does the governor think we're stupid? And this is a great way to bring it full circle because will this be, and I'll predict right now, a one-off from Kyle Clark on KUSA. He did an excellent piece of commentary there. I commend him for it. I'm glad he did it. But I predict it will be a one-off, whereas we all know the only thing that really matters is when there's sustained coverage and investigative reporting on something wrong. And we see that the left in the media do that all the time on conservatives, even when it's undeserved, but they never do it on the left. They may do a one-off story, but they never do the sustained expose. Will we see this sustained expose on Polis and the left on this? Well, let's wait and see.
Well, Dan, and that's where we come in because I will stay on this. I will definitely be publishing, not only continuing to put stuff on YouTube like I've been doing, but I plan to go to national outlets with this too and tell that story to the national audience.
Well, and you put it together so beautifully. And I know there are a lot of people in this audience who really like to have the depth, the details. So let's end today with you again telling people where they can find that, the different videos you've done. They can go deep dive it themselves.
So again, I very much recommend going to YouTube and searching for IITV3. That's our YouTube channel. And there's a playlist all about property taxes, including the latest on Polis's property tax plan. But you can also follow me on Twitter. It's at Ben A. Murrey, Murrey, at Ben A. Murrey on Twitter.
Great work, Ben. I mean, it's really hard work, too, which is one of the reasons I admire it so much. So thanks for what you're doing.
Thanks, Dan.
Take care, Mike.